Let's start with a law of physics that applies directly to your love life, and it is called the rubber band paradox. Imagine you are holding a rubber band between your two thumbs. If you keep your hands pressed together, the band is loose, it is slack, and it hangs there with absolutely zero potential energy. There is no tension, there is no power, and most importantly, there is no snap. Now pull your hands apart. Feel that resistance building? That is tension. That is potential energy. That is attraction. The further you pull away, the more that rubber band desperately wants to snap back together to close the gap. This is the fundamental mistake you have been making every single day. You are standing right next to the person you want, keeping the band slack, suffocating them with your presence, and wondering why there is no spark. You are trying to force a connection by removing the very distance required to create it. Attraction is not a static state of being close to someone. Attraction is the dynamic tension created by the space between you. Without the distance, without the stretching, there is no pull. You have to understand that the human brain is wired to ignore what is constant and obsess over what is variable. When you are always there, always available, and always steady, you become background noise. You become the hum of the refrigerator that they stop hearing until it breaks. You need to break. You need to be the rubber band stretching away to create the tension that pulls them back in, because right now your proximity is killing their desire. I need to call you out on something right now, and it might sting a little, but I promise it is for your own good. You have convinced yourself of a lie. You tell yourself that by being available 24/7, by answering that text in 3 seconds flat, by clearing your schedule the moment they ask to hang out, you are proving your loyalty. You think you are showing them how much you care, how dedicated you are, and what a great partner you would be. You think you are being romantic, but let me tell you what they actually see. They do not see loyalty. They see a lack of options. When you are hyper-available, you are not signaling that you are a high-value catch who has chosen them out of a sea of possibilities. You are signaling that you have nothing else going on. You are signaling that your time has no value, that your attention is cheap, and that your life is empty enough to revolve entirely around them. It is a harsh truth, but humans are economic creatures at our core. We value what is scarce and we devalue what is abundant. If your attention is abundant, if it is free-flowing like water from a broken tap, it becomes worthless. You are essentially handing them a flyer on the street corner that they didn't in Oppos to ask for. Do they read it? No, they crumple it up and throw it away because if it was valuable, you wouldn't in Oppos to be forcing it into their hand. You think you are being nice, but you are actually being boring. You are removing the thrill of the chase, the mystery of the unknown, and the dopamine hit of earning your attention. Let's visualize this because I want this image burned into your brain for the next time you feel the urge to double text. Picture a graph. On the vertical axis, the y-axis, we have in Oppos level of interest and attraction. And Oppos, on the horizontal axis, the x-axis, we have in Oppos your availability. And Oppos, most people, especially the ones who identify as the nice guy or the nice girl, think that this line should go up and to the right. They think as availability increases, interest increases. But the reality of human psychology is that this line crashes. It starts high when you are a mystery, and as your availability trends toward 100%, the interest line plummets toward 0. It is an inverse correlation. It is a crash. It is the nice guy demise. Every time you say an Oppos, yes an Oppos, when you should say an Oppos, maybe and Oppos. Every time you pick up the phone on the first ring, every time you act like a golden retriever waiting by the door, you are driving that interest line into the ground. Why does this happen? Because predictability is the enemy of passion. When they know exactly what you are going to do, when they know they can treat you poorly and you will still be there, when they know they can ignore you for 3 days and you will reply instantly on the 4th, you have removed all the stakes. You have turned a high-stakes poker game into a game of solitaire that they can pause and come back to whenever they are bored. You have become a safety net, and nobody falls in love with a safety net. They use the safety net when they fall, but they dream about the tightrope. Let an Oppos dive deeper into the neuroscience of why this happens, because this ISN and Oppos just dating advice, this is biological programming. Your brain releases dopamine, the pleasure chemical, not when you get the reward, but in the anticipation of the reward. This is crucial. The peak dopamine spike happens during the pursuit, during the uncertainty, during the and oppose, will they or one and oppose, they and oppose, phase. When you are instantly available, you kill the anticipation. You hand over the reward before they have even done the work to earn it. It is like playing a video game with all the cheat codes on. Sure, it is fun for about 5 minutes to be invincible, but then it gets boring and you turn it off. You want a challenge. You want to feel like you achieved something. When you walk away, when you withdraw your attention, you are reintroducing uncertainty into the equation. You are resetting their dopamine loop. Suddenly, the reward ISN and oppose, T guaranteed. Suddenly, they have to wonder. They have to think. And here is the key. The more they think about you, the more they invest in you. Every time they check their phone and see you haven and oppose, T replied, that is a micro-investment of mental energy. Every time they wonder where you are or who you are with, that is another investment. You are occupying real estate in their mind not by being present, but by being absent. This is the power of the pattern interrupt. They expect you to chase because that is what you have always done. When you stop, when you walk away, you shatter their expectation. You create a void. And the human brain hates a void. It will do anything to fill it. This concept of and oppose, walking away and oppose, is often misunderstood as playing games or being manipulative, but that is a superficial reading of a profound psychological truth. Walking away is actually the ultimate demonstration of high self-worth. It is the ability to negotiate from a position of power. In any negotiation, the person who is most willing to walk away from the deal holds all the leverage. If you are terrified of losing the deal, if you are terrified of losing the relationship, you will accept bad terms. You will accept breadcrumbs of affection. You will accept disrespect. You will accept being a placeholder. And they can smell that fear on you. It is a pheromone of desperation. But when you are willing to walk away, when you are genuinely content with your own company and your own life, you signal that you are the prize. You signal that your presence is a privilege, not a right. This shifts the dynamic instantly. It forces them to recalibrate how they view you. Suddenly, you are not the fan in the audience cheering for them. You are the celebrity on the stage that they want to get a glimpse of. It triggers a primal fear of loss in them. Loss aversion is a psychological principle that states the pain of losing something is twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something. By being constantly available, you remove the possibility of loss. You cannot lose what is glued to your leg. By walking away, you introduce the threat of loss, and that threat wakes them up. It shakes them out of their complacency and forces them to evaluate what you actually mean to them. Think about the most valuable things in our society. Gold, diamonds, rare art. Why are they valuable? Scarcity. If diamonds were as common as gravel, we would use them to pave driveways. We wooden and oppose. T put them on rings. You are treating yourself like gravel and expecting to be treated like a diamond. You are flooding the market with your own attention and causing inflation that devalues your stock. You need to restrict the supply. This ISN and oppose. T about being mean. It is about resource management. Your time, your emotional energy, and your love are finite resources. When you give them away to someone who ISN and oppose, T investing in return, you are making a bad investment. You are bankrupting yourself emotionally. Walking away is the act of stopping that bad investment. It is saying, and oppose, my resources are too valuable to be wasted here. And oppose, and strangely, brilliantly, tragically, that is the exact moment they will start to want you. It is the moment you stop trying to sell yourself that they start wanting to buy. It is the moment you close the shop that they start banging on the door. Because suddenly you are exclusive. Suddenly you are out of reach. We always want what is just out of reach. It is the and oppose. Grass is greener and oppose. Syndrome, but applied to your presence. When you are on their side of the fence, you are just grass. When you are on the other side, walking away, you become the greener pasture they feel they are missing out on. You have to understand the difference between passive waiting and active living. The and oppose? Nice guy and oppose or and oppose? Nice girl and oppose sits and waits. Their life is on pause. They are an NPC, a non-player character, in the movie of their crush and oppose. life. They only activate when the main character interacts with them. This is repulsive. High-value people have a mission. They have a purpose. They have a life that is moving forward like a freight train. If someone wants to be part of that life, they have to run to catch the train. You do not stop the train to beg them to board. Walking away is simply the act of keeping your train moving. It is focusing on your goals, your gym routine, your business, your friends, and your passions. It is being so consumed by your own growth that you genuinely do not have time to sit and stare at a blank screen. This authenticity is magnetic, cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to walk away while secretly checking their Instagram story every 5 minutes. That energy leaks out. You have to genuinely be willing to let go. You have to reach a point of indifference where the outcome doesn't and oppose. Define your happiness. This is the paradox of detachment. The less you need them, the more they need you. The less you try to control the interaction, the more control you actually have. It creates a vacuum of validation. Usually, you are the one validating them, telling them they are great, laughing at their bad jokes. When you walk away, that validation stream dries up. They start to feel thirsty. They have to come to the source to get a drink. They have to work for it. Let's look at the visual of the and oppose, pedestal and oppose, because this is where the geometry of attraction gets interesting. When you are obsessed with someone and refusing to walk away, you are placing them on a pedestal. By definition, if they are on a pedestal, they are above you, which means you are below them. You are looking up. They are looking down. It is impossible to have a healthy connection or genuine attraction across a vertical gap of status. You are straining your neck looking up, and they are getting a cramp looking down. Walking away kicks the pedestal out from under them. It brings them back down to earth, or rather, it elevates you to your proper standing. It levels the playing field. It signals that you are not a fan, you are a peer. You are an equal. And we only truly fall in love with our equals. We might pity those below us, and we might idolize those above us, but we partner with those beside us. By walking away, you are asserting your equality. You are saying, and oppose, I respect myself enough not to tolerate ambiguity and oppose. This command of respect is far more attractive than blind adoration. Adoration is cheap. Respect is earned. When you walk away from bad behavior or lack of effort, you earn their respect. Even if they don and oppose, chase you immediately, they will respect you. And respect is the foundational soil that attraction grows in. Without respect, you might get pity, you might get used, but you will never get desire. Consider the narrative arc of every great romance movie or book. There is always a separation. There is always a moment where the hero or heroine leaves. Why? Because if they just sat on the couch together for 2 hours eating chips, there is no story. The separation creates the conflict, and the conflict creates the emotional investment. You are trying to live a story without conflict, and it is boring the hell out of the person you want. You are terrified of the silence, but the silence is where the magic happens. The silence is where they project their fantasies onto you. When you are constantly talking, texting, and explaining, you are defining yourself too clearly. You are removing the mystery, but when you are silent, when you are gone, you become a blank canvas. Their mind starts to paint a picture of you. They start to wonder what you are doing, and usually, their imagination makes you far more interesting than you actually are. They imagine you are out having the time of your life. They imagine you are meeting other people. They imagine you are thriving. This imagined version of you is highly attractive, competes with their reality. It makes them feel like they are missing out on a party that everyone else is invited to. This fear of missing out, this FOMO, is a powerful psychological driver. It makes them want to re-enter your orbit just to see what the hype is about. You are leveraging their own imagination against them to build your value. We also have to talk about the biological imperative of the and oppose, challenge, and oppose. For thousands of years, our ancestors had to hunt. They had to forage. They had to survive. Our brains are wired for problem solving. A puzzle that is already solved is garbage. It gets thrown back in the box. A puzzle that is missing a few pieces, a puzzle that is difficult, keeps us up at night. When you are too available, you are a solved puzzle. You are the completed Rubik and oppose. S cube sitting on the shelf. Walking away scrambles the cube. It hands them a mixed-up puzzle and says, "And oppos, good luck." And oppos. It engages their problem-solving brain. They have to figure you out again. And oppos. Why did they pull back? Did I say something wrong? Are they seeing someone else? What changed? And oppos. These questions are the hooks that drag them back in. You are forcing them to expend mental calories on you. And there is a psychological concept called the and oppos, sunk cost fallacy and oppos or and oppos, effort justification. And oppos, the more effort we put into something, the more we value it. If they have to work to get your attention back, if they have to chase you down, they will value that attention significantly more than if you gave it for free. They will justify their effort by telling themselves and oppos, I must really like this person if I and oppos am trying this hard. And oppos, you are actually helping them fall for you by giving them the opportunity to work for you. You are facilitating their investment. This brings us to the concept of and oppos, emotional contagion and oppos, and certainty. Certainty is the killer of passion. When you are 100% certain that someone loves you, creates a sense of comfort, but it creates zero urgency. Urgency is required for action. If you want them to ask you out, if you want them to commit, if you want them to make a move, there needs to be urgency. Urgency comes from the fear that the opportunity might disappear. If the store is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, you never feel the need to rush there. You'll go in oppos, later, and oppos, you'll go in oppos, someday, and oppos. But if the store has a sign that says in oppos, closing soon in oppos or in oppos, limited time only and oppos, you rush. Walking away puts the and oppos, limited time only and oppos, sign on your forehead. It creates scarcity urgency. It tells them that your presence is not a permanent fixture in their life unless they do something to secure it. It wakes them up from the slumber of your availability. It reminds them that you are a free agent. You are a sovereign individual with the capacity to leave. This is a very subtle but very aggressive reminder of your autonomy. It shakes the foundation of their complacency. They realize that they have been taking you for granted, and the moment they realize that, the dynamic flips. The power shifts. You go from the beggar to the chooser. Finally, you need to understand that walking away resets the emotional baseline. Right now, your baseline is and oppos, high-intensity pursuit. And oppos, they are used to it. It's their normal. If you drop your effort by 10%, they barely notice. You have to drop it to 0. You have to shock the system. This ISN and oppos. T about fading out slowly. It is about a sharp, distinct change in behavior that signals a shift in your mindset. It is the contrast that creates the impact. If you are in a loud room, you have to yell to be heard. But if the room goes silent, a whisper sounds like a scream. You have been yelling with your attention. Now you need to go silent. In that silence, your absence will scream louder than your presence ever could. You are giving them the gift of missing you, and you cannot miss something that never leaves. You have to be gone to be missed. You have to create the space for them to feel the lack of you. That ache, that little hole in their day where your good morning text used to be, that is where attraction grows. It grows in the cracks of your absence. So stop trying to fill every crack with cement. Stop trying to patch every hole. Let the holes exist. Let the silence linger. Let the rubber band stretch until it creates so much tension that they have no choice but to snap back to you. Because the only way to truly get what you want is to prove, to them and to yourself, that you have the strength to walk away from it. Let's rip the bandage off immediately and look at the absolute carnage happening in your dating life right now because you have bought into the single biggest lie in modern social dynamics, which is the idea that being available, present, and constantly responsive is the pathway to building a connection. You have been conditioned by Hollywood movies, by well-meaning but ultimately clueless friends, and perhaps by your own anxiety to believe that showing someone you are there for them 24/7 is a display of loyalty or high interest. But in reality, you are effectively hanging a neon and quote, open 24 hours and quote, sign on your forehead that screams cheap convenience store rather than exclusive luxury boutique. We need to talk about the and quote, open 24/7 and quote, fallacy because it is the silent killer of attraction, and it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of how human value perception works. When you are always available, when your phone is glued to your hand and you reply within seconds of a notification, you think you are being attentive, but what you are actually doing is signaling a terrifying lack of purpose and a complete void of self-respect. This is where we have to introduce a concept that I like to call relationship inflation, and it works exactly like economic inflation in the real world, where the more you print money, the less that money is worth. Your attention is your currency. It is the only finite resource you truly have to trade in the marketplace of romance and social connection. And if you are printing unlimited amounts of attention and handing it out freely to someone who hasn't invested anything to earn it, you are hyperinflating the market and crashing the value of your own stock. Think about the basic principles of supply and demand that govern every single transaction on this planet, from the price of gold to the price of a seat at a sold-out concert, and understand that human psychology does not get a pass from these laws. If the supply of your time is infinite, the demand will inevitably drop to zero. You are creating a surplus of yourself, and in the human brain, things that are in surplus are categorized as low value, disposable, and unworthy of pursuit. When you oversupply your time, you are subconsciously telling the other person that your time has no alternative uses, implying that you have no mission, no hobbies, no other options, and no life outside of waiting for their validation. This is not romantic. It is repulsive to the primal brain that is wired to seek out high-status mates who are resourceful and in demand. You might think you are being nice, you might think you are building rapport, but you are actually boring them to tears because there is no friction, there is no chase, and there is no gap for them to wonder about you. This brings us to the visceral, gut-wrenching reality of what I call the blue checkmark syndrome, which is that specific, nauseating anxiety that grips your chest when you see that they have read your message but haven't and oppose. T replied, while you, like a faithful golden retriever, replied to them instantly. Let's break down the mechanics of this interaction, because it is not just about texting. It is a battle for the frame of the relationship. When you reply instantly to someone who takes hours to get back to you, you are establishing a power dynamic where their time is treated as gold and your time is treated as sand. You are subcommunicating that their schedule dictates your emotional state. You are sitting there, staring at the screen, analyzing the timestamp, watching the little gray tick turn blue, and spiraling into a state of panic because you have tied your self-worth to their responsiveness. This behavior screams low status. High-status individuals, people who are genuinely attractive, busy, and fulfilled, do not have the bandwidth to reply instantly to every ping and ding from their pocket because they are engaged in the real world, building their empire, working on their physique, or enjoying the moment with the people physically in front of them. When you interrupt your life to answer a text the second it comes in, you are demonstrating that the text is more important than your life. You are telling them that whatever you were doing was just a placeholder activity until they decided to grant you attention. This creates a massive imbalance where you become the fan and they become the celebrity. You are the one waiting in line for the autograph, and they are the one deciding if they have the energy to sign it. The blue checkmark syndrome destroys your mystique because it removes all ambiguity about where you stand. There is no mystery if you are always there. Mystery is the oxygen of attraction. It is the space where the other person's imagination can run wild and create a fantasy version of you that is far more compelling than the reality could ever be. By responding instantly, you suffocate that mystery. You don and oppose. T let them wonder what you and oppose. Redoing. You don and oppose. T let them wonder who you and oppose. Re-with. You don and oppose. T let them wonder if you and oppose. Rethinking about them. You hand them all the answers on a silver platter before they have even asked the questions. And in doing so, you rob them of the joy of discovery. Humans are hunters by nature. We value what we have to work for, and we discard what comes too easily. When you are an open book, a 24/7 convenience store, you are denying them the satisfaction of the hunt. This leads us directly into the most painful, cringe-inducing spiral that almost everyone has experienced but nobody wants to admit to, which is the catastrophe of the double text and the over-explanation. Let's deep dive into this story because I need you to feel the cringe so you never do it again. Picture this scenario. You send a text that is perfectly fine, maybe a little risky, maybe a joke, or maybe just a question. You hit send. The dopamine hit is instant, but it fades within seconds. 1 minute passes. 5 minutes pass. You put the phone down, but your brain is still tethered to it. 10 minutes pass. You check the screen. Nothing. Now the doubt starts to creep in like a cold fog. And quote, Was that too forward? Did they misunderstand the tone? Maybe they are offended. Maybe they are with someone else. And quote, the anxiety starts to metabolize into a physical sensation in your stomach. You open the chat again. You read your own message. Suddenly, it looks stupid. It looks ambiguous. You convince yourself that the reason they aren't in oppos. T replying ISN in oppos. T because they are busy, but because you messed up. So you decide to, in quote, fix and quote it. This is the fatal error. You start typing the second message, the justification, the clarifier, and quote, I was just joking BTW, and quote, or in quote, no pressure though, and quote, or the absolute worst offender, and quote, hey, did you get my last text? And quote, you hit send on the second message. Now you haven and oppos. T just doubled your investment. You have exponentially increased your display of insecurity. You have shown them that you lack the confidence to stand by your own words. You have shown them that you cannot handle silence. You have shown them that you need their validation to feel okay. And the worst part? The moment you send that double text, you reset the clock on their response and you lower your value even further. But it doesn't in oppos. T stop there. Does it? The spiral continues. If they still don and oppos. T reply, the anger sets in, followed by the self-pity. You might send a third text, something passive-aggressive like, and quote, guess you in oppos, re-busy, and quote, or something self-deprecating. You are now negotiating for attention. You are begging for scraps. And on the other end of that phone, the other person is looking at their screen with a mixture of pity and annoyance. They see the notifications stacking up, 1, 2, 3 messages in a row without a response from them. It looks desperate. It looks clingy. It looks like a liability. They are in an oppos. T thinking and quote, oh, this person really likes me, that in oppos. S sweet. And quote, they are thinking and quote, this person is overwhelming. This is too much pressure. I need to back away. And quote, you have successfully talked yourself out of a connection that might have actually worked if you had just possessed the strength to do nothing. The end quote, open 24/7 and quote. Fallacy convinces you that more communication is better communication, but in the early stages of attraction, and even deep into relationships, less is often more. The silence is where the attraction grows. The space between the notes is what makes the music. When you fill every silence with noise, you are destroying the rhythm of the interaction. You are acting out of fear, fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of not being good enough, and that fear smells pungent. People can smell it through the screen. It manifests in the use of too many emojis, the paragraphs of text in response to a 3-word answer, the constant availability, the eager agreement with everything they say. You become an NPC in their life, a non-player character that just stands there waiting to be interacted with, rather than the main character of your own story who is on a mission. This behavior is rooted in a scarcity mindset, the belief that this one person is your only shot at happiness, so you have to grip them tight or they will slip away. But the irony, the cruel cosmic joke, is that gripping them tight is exactly what causes them to slip away like a bar of wet soap. You squeeze and they shoot out of your hands. If you had just held your hand open, if you had just walked away and focused on your own life, they would have likely stayed right there, resting in your palm, intrigued by your confidence and drawn in by your independence. We have to shatter this illusion that being, and quote, nice and quote, means being a doormat. There is nothing nice about burdening someone else with the responsibility of regulating your emotional state. That is what you are doing when you blow up their phone because you can and oppos. T handle the anxiety of waiting. You are outsourcing your emotional regulation to them. You are saying, and quote, I can and oppos. T feel okay until you validate me. And quote, that is a heavy burden to place on a stranger or even a partner. It is exhausting, kills desire. Desire needs distance. You cannot desire what you already have in excess. You cannot desire what is shoved in your face. You desire what is just out of reach, what is slightly uncertain, what requires effort to obtain. When you walk away from the phone, when you engage in your life, when you let a text sit for 3 hours because you are genuinely busy crushing a workout or building a business or reading a book, you are not playing games. You are living a high-value life. and that reality subcommunicates more attractiveness in one delayed response than 1,000 instant, eager, desperate texts ever could. The and quote, open 24/7 and quote, sign needs to be smashed. You need to close up shop. You need to become a limited edition drop, not a mass-produced commodity. When you understand this, you realize that the anxiety you feel when they dawn in oppos. T-reply is not a signal to act. It is a signal to retreat, to recalibrate, and to invest back into yourself. The problem ISN and oppos. T that they aren't in oppos. T texting you back. The problem is that you are staring at the phone waiting for it. The problem is that your world has shrunk down to the size of a glowing rectangle, and you have lost perspective on the vast, abundant reality that exists outside of that digital tether. You are suffering from a crisis of identity where you have forgotten who you were before they came along. You have inflated their value to godlike status and deflated your own value to zero. This is the trap. This is the fallacy. And until you recognize that your time is a non-renewable resource that should be guarded with your life, you will continue to be the person who is left on read, the person who is, in quote, too nice, and quote, the person who tries so hard only to finish last. You have to stop viewing your availability as a gift and start viewing it as a reward that is earned through reciprocity, through mutual effort, and through respect. If they step back, you step back. If they give you silence, you give them space. You mirror their investment. You do not overcompensate for their lack of it. The moment you start overcompensating is the moment you start losing. It's the moment the in quote, ick in quote, sets in for them. And once the in quote, ick in quote, is there, once they see you as the desperate supplier of unwanted attention, it is nearly impossible to reverse the polarity. So, the next time you feel that urge, that itch to double text, to reply instantly, to apologize for nothing, to explain yourself, stop, freeze, put the phone in another room. Go do something that actually adds value to your life. Because the most attractive thing you can do in that moment is absolutely nothing. By doing nothing, you are doing everything. You are preserving your dignity, you are maintaining the mystery, and you are signaling that while you might want them, you certainly do not need them. And that difference between want and need is the difference between being a catch and being a cautionary tale. Let us rip open the hood of the human mind and look directly at the wiring, because what we are about to discuss ISN and oppos. T-pickup artist magic or some dark manipulation tactic found in the corners of the internet. It is hard-coded evolutionary biology that has been running on the operating system of the human brain for 200,000 years. You need to understand that when you walk away, you are not just physically leaving a space or ending a negotiation, you are literally hacking the neurochemistry of the other person. And to understand why this makes you instantly attractive, we have to look at the terrified animal that lives inside all of us. This starts with a concept that won a Nobel Prize for Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, which is called loss aversion bias, and this is the foundational pillar of why walking away is the nuclear option in attraction. The bias states a very simple but terrifying mathematical truth about human psychology, which is that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. If you find $100 on the street, you get a hit of dopamine, you feel lucky, you might buy a nice lunch. But if you lose $100 from your wallet, you feel stupid, you feel angry, you retrace your steps for hours, you beat yourself up about it for days. The negative emotion is heavier, it sticks to your ribs, it consumes your mental bandwidth in a way that the positive gain never could. Now apply this to dating and social dynamics. When you are constantly available, when you are double texting, when you are begging for their attention, you are positioning yourself as a guaranteed gain. And biologically speaking, humans do not value guaranteed gains because they are safe, they are already in the bank, they require no caloric expenditure to maintain. You become the emotional equivalent of the loose change in their couch cushions, always there, useful in a pinch, but completely ignored. However, the second you demonstrate the willingness to walk away, you flip the script and trigger that primal loss aversion mechanism. You transform from a potential gain into a potential loss, and suddenly the brain of the other person goes into emergency mode. This goes back to the ancestral environment where our brains were forged, back when we lived in tribes of 150 people on the savannah. In that world, losing a social connection, losing a mate, or being ostracized was nanapos. Just a sad Friday night, it was a death sentence. We are the descendants of the anxious ancestors, the ones who freaked out when they thought they were losing status or connection, So when you withdraw your attention, you are pinging that ancient alarm system in their amygdala. You are creating a vacuum where your validation used to be. Most people are terrified to walk away because they think if they leave, the other person will just forget them, but the science proves the exact opposite is true. When you stay and beg, you are easily forgettable because you are a known quantity, you are a solved puzzle. When you walk away, you become an open loop, a glitch in their matrix that their brain is forced to try and solve. This creates what we call intrusive thinking. They start wondering why you left. Did they say something wrong? Did you find someone better? Are you higher value than they initially thought? This rumination is the soil where attraction grows. You cannot be attracted to someone who is smothered all over you because attraction requires space. It requires a gap between the desire and the fulfillment of that desire. By walking away, you create that gap. You are leveraging the fear of loss to increase your perceived value, and this ties directly into what economists and game theorists call the auction effect. Imagine you are at an auction for a painting. If there are unlimited paintings and nobody is bidding, the price is zero. But if there is only one painting and the auctioneer threatens to close the bidding, suddenly the paddles go up. When you are always available, you are flooding the market with your supply, and basic economics teaches us that when supply exceeds demand, value plummets to the floor. By walking away, you are artificially restricting the supply of your attention. You are taking yourself off the market. This triggers a reassessment of value in the other person and oppo's mind. They have to ask themselves why you are willing to leave. We continuously subconsciously scan for social proof and value indicators, and the subcommunication of walking away is that you have options, that you are not desperate, and that you have high standards that were not met. This makes you the high-ticket item. It frames the interaction so that they are the one bidding for your attention, rather than you begging for theirs. This touches on the concept of scarcity, but it is deeper than just being hard to get. It is about being hard to keep. High-value people have boundaries, and when those boundaries are crossed, they leave. Low-value people have no boundaries because they are just grateful to be in the room. When you walk away, you signal that you are the prize, and human beings are wired to chase prizes. We want what we cannot have, and we want what other people want. By removing yourself, you create a mystery, and mystery is the greatest aphrodisiac known to man because it forces the other person to engage their imagination. When they are imagining you, they are investing in you. They are building a fantasy version of you in their mind that is often far more addictive than the reality, and they are doing all this mental work simply because you were strong enough to turn your back and walk out the door. Now we have to get into the heavy chemistry because this is where the addiction actually happens, and I am talking about the neurotransmitter dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure molecule, the chemical you get when you eat the cake or get the kiss, but that is a fundamental misunderstanding of neuroscience. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It is the molecule of pursuit, of craving, of motivation. It is the fuel that makes you hunt. Stanford University researcher Robert Sapolsky did phenomenal work on this with monkeys. He trained monkeys that if they pressed a lever when a light came on, they would get a reward, a bit of juice. As you would expect, dopamine spiked when they got the juice. But then he changed the experiment. He made it so that when the light came on and they pressed the lever, they only got the reward 50% of the time. 50%. Sometimes the juice came, sometimes it didn't, and oppos. You would think the dopamine levels would drop because the reward was less consistent, but the exact opposite happened. The dopamine levels went through the roof, spiking twice as high as when the reward was guaranteed. This is the science of uncertainty. This is the biological engine behind gambling addiction. When the outcome is uncertain, the brain produces massive amounts of dopamine to push the organism to keep trying, to figure out the pattern, to secure the reward. When you are always nice, always available, and you never walk away, you are the 100% reward schedule. You are the guaranteed juice. The other person and oppo's brain habituates to you. They get bored. There is no chemical spike because there is no uncertainty. They know you are going to text back in 5 minutes. They know you are free on Friday. They know you like them. It is comfortable, but it is chemically boring. Now, look at what happens when you walk away. Suddenly, you introduce that 50% factor. The end quote, maybe, end quote. Are you gone for good? Might you come back? Do you still like them? That uncertainty creates a massive dopamine spike in their brain every time they think about you. They are checking their phone to see if you texted. They are stalking your stories. They are asking their friends about you. Every moment of uncertainty is pumping dopamine into their system, and because dopamine is the molecule of motivation, this chemical flood motivates them to chase you. They feel an intense pull toward you, which they interpret as burning love or intense attraction. But strictly speaking, it is a dopamine loop triggered by the withdrawal of your attention. You have become the slot machine that has an Appos. T paid out in a while, and they are frantically pulling the lever hoping for a jackpot. This is why the bad boy or the ice queen archetypes are so historically effective. It ISN and Appos. T that people like being treated poorly. It is that they are addicted to the chemical rush of the uncertainty that those archetypes provide. By walking away, you are utilizing the same psychological mechanism that casinos used to keep grandmothers glued to slot machines for 12 hours straight. You are removing the guarantee, and in doing so, you are maximizing their chemical drive to pursue you. We need to go deeper into how this physically manifests in the body of the person you left. When you walk away, you trigger a stress response. Their cortisol levels spike. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it feels like anxiety, it feels like a pit in the stomach. The brain wants to resolve this stress. It wants to lower the cortisol and get that hit of dopamine and oxytocin to feel safe again. The quickest way for them to fix this chemical imbalance is to reestablish contact with you. They need your validation to regulate their own emotional state. This puts you in the ultimate position of power. You are the drug and you just cut off the supply. They are going through withdrawal. This is why you see people who were lukewarm or indifferent suddenly blowing up your phone the moment you decide to move on. You think it an Appos. A coincidence? It is not a coincidence. It is a physiological reaction to the sudden scarcity of your attention. You have forced their brain to prioritize you. The brain has a reticular activating system, a filter that decides what is important and what is background noise. Things that are dangerous, changing, or disappearing get flagged as high priority. By walking away, you hack their reticular activating system. You go from being background noise to being the red flashing light on their dashboard. You occupy their mental real estate rent-free. This is where the sunk cost fallacy also starts to kick in, but in your favor. If they chase you, if they expend energy trying to get you back, their brain has to justify that expenditure. The brain hates cognitive dissonance. It doesn't in Appos. T want to think I am chasing this person for no reason, So it creates a narrative I must really like them. They must be really special. Why else would I be trying so hard? The more they chase, the more value they assign to you to justify the chase. It is a self-reinforcing loop. By walking away, you force them to invest effort, and we value what we work for. We do not value what is handed to us on a silver platter. When you serve yourself up on a platter, you are cheap. When you require them to run after you, you are valuable. This is the difference between water from the tap and a bottle of expensive champagne. One is essential but free, the other is a celebration. You want to be the champagne, not the tap water. But you can only be the champagne if you are willing to stay corked, willing to stay on the shelf, willing to be unavailable until the price is right. Furthermore, we have to look at the concept of pattern interruption. In modern dating and social interactions, everyone is following a script. The script says, boy meets girl, they talk, they text, they play little games, but generally they move toward each other. When you walk away, you shatter that script. You break the pattern. This causes a moment of shock and awe. It forces the other person to wake up from their zombie-like scrolling and swiping state. You become unpredictable. Unpredictability is a hallmark of dominance. In the animal kingdom, the alpha is the one who is unpredictable, while the betas are reactive and predictable. By walking away, you signal high status. You signal that your time and your emotional energy are finite resources that you are not afraid to conserve. This commands respect. You cannot have attraction without respect. It is impossible. If they think they can walk all over you and you will still be there, they cannot respect you. And if they cannot respect you, they cannot be sexually or romantically attracted to you. Walking away is the ultimate demonstration of self-respect. It says, and quote, I value myself more than I value your validation. And quote, that is an incredibly magnetic trait. It radiates confidence. It shows that you are the main character in your own life, not a supporting actor in theirs. People want to be around the main character. They want to be part of the movie where the protagonist has a backbone. Let and Apo's look at the microscopic level of the neurons again. We are talking about synaptic plasticity. The connections in their brain that represent you are physically strengthening the more they think about you. When you are present, the thinking is passive. And quote, oh, there he is. And quote, oh, she and Apo's nice. And quote, it and Apo's low intensity. When you are absent, the thinking becomes active and high intensity. And quote, where are they? And quote, who are they with? And quote, I miss them. End quote. This high-intensity active thinking fires the neurons associated with you more rapidly and more strongly. This is called long-term potentiation. You are literally wiring yourself into their brain structure more deeply by being absent than you ever could by being present. It is the paradox of absence. As the saying goes, and quote, absence makes the heart grow fonder, end quote. But science tells us it enapos. Not just fondness, it enapos. Obsession. It enapos. The anxiety of the unknown mixed with the hope of the reward. It is a potent cocktail that overrides logic. You might have noticed that people often stay in toxic relationships where the partner is constantly leaving and coming back. Why? Because that intermittent reinforcement, that walking away and returning, creates a trauma bond that is chemically identical to heroin addiction. Now, I am not telling you to be toxic, and I am not telling you to trauma bond people, but you must understand the mechanics. You must understand that being, in quote, too nice, in quote, and in quote, always there, in quote, is chemically incapable of producing that spark of intense attraction. You need the shadow to see the light. You need the absence to appreciate the presence. Think about the content you consume. You scroll past thousands of videos. You only stop for the ones that hook you, that give you something new, that move fast. If a video drags on, if it explains everything in the first second, you swipe. People are the same. If you explain everything, if you give everything, they swipe. Walking away is the ultimate cliffhanger. It is the end quote, to be continued, end quote, screen at the end of a season finale. It leaves the audience screaming for more. They cannot help but tune in next time. They need closure. Human beings have a psychological need for cognitive closure. We hate unfinished business. When you walk away in the middle of a negotiation, or before the date gets stale, or when the relationship is undefined, you deny them that closure. You stay in their mind as an unsolved equation. They will carry the thought of you around like a pebble in their shoe, a constant, nagging reminder that you are significant. This is how you live rent-free in someone and Apo's head. You don an Apo's. Pay rent by being nice. You pay rent by being scarce. You pay rent by being the one who was strong enough to disconnect. This also touches on the psychological concept of reactance. Psychological reactance theory states that when a person feels their freedom of choice is being threatened or eliminated, they react by asserting that freedom, usually by doing the opposite of what is expected. When you pursue someone too hard, they feel their freedom is being threatened. They feel pressured, so they pull away to regain their sense of autonomy. But when you walk away, when you are the one leaving, you are not threatening their freedom. In fact, you are removing the pressure. Paradoxically, this makes them feel free to come towards you. The pressure is gone, the chase is off, and suddenly they realize that they want you. You flipped the polarity. Instead of pushing a magnet against another magnet where they repel, you turned yours around and now they snap together. You gave them the space to feel their own desire. You cannot feel desire for something that is being shoved down your throat. You can only desire something that is just out of reach. Walking away places you just out of reach. It places you on the pedestal not because you put yourself there, but because they have to look up to see where you went. And we must consider the comparative nature of the human brain. We judge everything by contrast. You only know what light is because you know what dark is. You only know what warm is because you know what cold is. If you are always warm, always loving, always present, you become room temperature. You become invisible. By walking away, you provide the contrast. You provide the cold. This makes your warmth, when you eventually decide to give it again, feel 10 times hotter. It makes your presence feel like a gift rather than an obligation. The dopamine hit they get when you finally do reply or finally do show up is magnified because of the period of deprivation that preceded it. This is how you hack the reward system. You don an oppos. Give the reward for free. You make the reward scarce so that the brain values it. You are teaching them how to treat you. You are training their neural pathways to associate your presence with high reward and your absence with pain. This is essentially conditioning, Pavlovian style. You ring the bell, they salivate. But if you ring the bell every 10 seconds, they stop salivating. You have to wait. You have to walk away. You have to let the silence build. Finally, consider the evolutionary signal of abundance. In nature, an animal that has many options does not obsess over one single food source. A wolf that has a surplus of meat does not fight to the death over a scrap. When you walk away, you are subcommunicating abundance. You are telling the world, and specifically that person, and quote, I have other options. I have a mission. I have a life. I am not defined by this interaction. And quote, this is the most attractive trait possible because it screams genetic fitness. It screams that you are a survivor who acts from a place of plenty, not a place of lack. People want to be close to abundance. They want to soak up the resources, the energy, the status of someone who has enough. Desperation smells like death. Walking away smells like life. It tells them that you are going places, and if they want to come along, they better step up, they better bid high, and they better not waste your time. You are leveraging millions of years of biological programming that tells us to follow the leader who knows where they are going, and usually the leader is the one walking away from the nonsense, walking away from the lowball offers, and walking towards their own purpose. That is magnetic. That is power. That is the science of the walk away. Let's get into the granular mechanics of the exit because most people think walking away is just about physically leaving a room or blocking a number, but that is a superficial understanding of the dynamic, and frankly, it is amateur hour. If you want to trigger actual biological attraction and a deep sense of loss in the other person, you have to understand the distinction between a reaction and a response, because one makes you look like a wounded child and the other makes you look like a high-value asset that just liquidated its stock. When we talk about the rage quit versus the silent quit, we are essentially talking about the economy of your attention and the volatility of your emotional state. A rage quit is an explosion. It is slamming the door, sending the 3-paragraph text message, screaming, crying, or making a grand performative gesture that you are done. While this might feel cathartic in the moment due to the rush of adrenaline and cortisol, it is actually a massive signal of weakness and high investment. When you rage quit, you are telling the other person that they have absolute control over your emotional dashboard. You are validating their importance. You are effectively saying that their behavior is so impactful it has the power to shatter your composure. In the world of high-status psychology, he who loses control first loses the frame. The rage quit is a reaction, and reactions are involuntary reflexes to external stimuli. It places you in the passenger seat of your own life while the other person drives the car. Even if you are the one dumping them or quitting the job or ending the friendship, if you do it with high-amplitude emotion, you have not actually walked away. You have just paused the movie during an action sequence. The energy is still tethered to them. They know they can get you back because your anger is just passion flipped upside down. Anger is still connection. Hate is still connection. Indifference is the only true exit. This is where we pivot to the silent quit, or what I like to call the protocol of absence. This is not a reaction. It is a calculated, stoic response. It is the conscious decision to withdraw your investment without creating a scene. It is the difference between a thunderstorm and a drought. A thunderstorm is exciting and scary, but a drought is existential. A drought makes you realize the value of water. When you execute a silent quit, you are depriving the other person of the oxygen they need to maintain the conflict. You are not storming off, which invites a chase or an argument. You are simply dissolving. The psychological impact of this on the human brain is devastating in the most effective way possible because the brain is a prediction machine that thrives on patterns. When someone mistreats you or pushes your boundaries, their brain predicts resistance. They expect you to fight back, to plead, or to get angry. When you do none of those things, when you simply withdraw your energy and presence with zero fanfare, you create a prediction error in their mind. This is often referred to as a curiosity gap or an open loop. By not giving them the closure of a fight, you force their brain to loop over the interaction endlessly, trying to figure out what happened and where they went wrong. You become a puzzle they cannot solve. And in the landscape of attraction and power, mystery is the highest currency. Now we have to talk about the tactical implementation of this, because if you do it wrong, you just look like you are sulking. And sulking is perhaps the most unsexy trait a human being can possess. The key to the silent quit is the and oppose, warm freeze and oppose technique. This is a concept that confuses people because they assume walking away means turning cold. If you turn ice cold immediately, you are again showing a reaction. You are showing that you are hurt. The warm freeze is much more insidious and much more powerful. It involves maintaining a veneer of politeness and social grace while completely removing all emotional access and intimacy. You are technically there, but you are spiritually gone. Think of it like the difference between a best friend and a polite customer service agent. The customer service agent is nice. They say please and thank you. They smile, but they do not care about you. There is a glass wall between you and them. That is the warm freeze. You answer their questions. You do not ignore them. You do not ghost them, because ghosting is for cowards and teenagers. You respond, but your responses are stripped of all and oppose, hooks, and oppose. A hook is anything that invites further elaboration or emotional connection. If they ask how your day was, a high investment answer involves a story, a feeling, or a question back. The warm freeze answer is and oppose, it was good, thanks. And oppose, full stop. No question back. No elaboration. You are polite, but you are a dead end. You have become an NPC, a non-player character in their video game. You are no longer the co-op partner. This shift is terrifying to the other person because they cannot accuse you of being mean. If they say in oppose, why are you being weird? And oppose, you can genuinely say in oppose, I in oppose, am not I in oppose, am just tired in oppose, or in oppose, I in oppose, am just busy. And oppose, you have plausible deniability. You are not giving them any ammunition to call you dramatic, yet they can feel the massive void where your validation used to be. This forces them to work for your attention. It flips the dynamic instantly. They have to lean in because you have leaned out. This is basic physics. Nature abhors a vacuum. By creating an emotional vacuum, you compel them to try and fill it. They will start talking more, texting more, trying to provoke a reaction just to see if the old you is still in there. And the discipline, the absolute discipline required here, is to never let the old you resurface. You must maintain the warm freeze until the dynamic has fundamentally shifted, or until you have successfully completely detached. This is how you negotiate from a position of power without ever raising your voice. It is the ultimate display of self-respect because it signals that your emotional inner sanctum is VIP access only, and their pass has been revoked. Let's drill down into the somatic components of this strategy, because your words can say and oppose, I and oppose, am done and oppose, but your body language can scream and oppose, please love me, and oppose. Human beings are experts at reading microsignals. We have evolved over millions of years to detect threats and tribal inclusion through nonverbal cues. If you are executing a silent quit but your feet are pointed toward them, your pupils are dilated, and you are leaning in, you are incongruent. Incongruence destroys trust and authority. To execute the power of walking away, you must master the physics of detachment. The first rule is the and oppose, quarter turn, and oppose. In any interaction where you are withdrawing, never face the person square on with your shoulders parallel to theirs. That is a confrontation or a deep connection stance. Instead, angle your body slightly away, about 45 degrees. You are signaling to their subconscious that your attention is divided, that you are ready to move on to the next thing. You are physically manifesting the exit before you have taken a step. This creates a subtle anxiety in them. It signals that you are a flight risk. Combined with this is the management of eye contact. In a high intimacy or high conflict scenario, prolonged eye contact creates a bridge. To walk away, you must break that bridge, but again, you must do it without looking shifty or submissive. Do not look down. Looking down signals shame or submission. Look past them. Look at the horizon. Look at a point slightly to the side of their head. Or use the endopos, zoning out endopos. Gaze where you look at them, but you focus your eyes as if you are looking through them. This is often called the endopos, 1,000-yard stare endopos. In combat, but in social dynamics, it signals that you are lost in your own thoughts and they are no longer the center of your universe. It is a soft dismissal. You are not glaring, which is aggressive. You are just absent. Furthermore, we need to address the speed of your movements. Anxiety is fast. Insecurity is twitchy. Power is slow. When you are walking away, metaphorically or literally, you must move with a glacial, deliberate pace. If you rush to pack your things, if you rush to leave the room, you look like you are fleeing a fire. You look like you are escaping because you can and oppose. Handle the heat. The person who walks away with power moves slower than normal. They check their watch. They adjust their jacket. They take a sip of water. They are signaling that they are leaving on their own timeline, not because they are being pushed out. This level of physical control is incredibly intimidating. It subcommunicates that you are entirely self-regulating. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature, you don an oppose. Just react to it. This vibe shift is palpable. You know when you are in a room with someone who is done? The air changes. It's not heavy with anger. It's light with indifference. That is the goal. You want to reach a state of an oppose, radical neutrality. And oppose, radical neutrality is dangerous to people who are used to manipulating you. Manipulators need friction. They need something to push against. When you become smooth as polished glass, they slide right off. They can and oppose. Get a grip. This is why the silent quit is so effective against toxic personalities, narcissists, and chaotic partners. They thrive on the drama of the rage quit. They feed on your tears and your shouting because it proves they exist. When you give them the warm freeze and the quarter turn, you are essentially erasing them. You are rendering their tactics obsolete. And the beauty of this is that it is not a game. It is not a manipulation tactic in itself if you are actually doing it to protect your peace. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a standard. You are training yourself that at the first sign of disrespect, you do not explode, you dissolve. You retract your energy. You conserve your value. We must also analyze the auditory component of the execution. Your voice is a tool. In a rage quit scenario, the pitch goes up, the speed increases, the volume fluctuates. You sound unstable. In a silent quit execution, you must drop your voice into the lower register. This is known as the end oppose, downward inflection. And oppose. At the end of every sentence, your voice should go down in pitch, not up. Upward inflection sounds like a question. It seeks approval. Downward inflection sounds like a statement. It delivers a fact. When you say an oppose, I think it an oppose. Es best if we stop talking and oppose. And you end on a low note, it sounds like a judge reading a verdict. It is final. There is no room for negotiation. If you say it with a high pitch, it sounds like a plea for them to change your mind. You have to monitor your breathing. If you are breathing from your upper chest, you will sound breathless and anxious. You must breathe from the diaphragm. This slows your heart rate and allows you to access that lower, more resonant tone. This is biological hacking. By controlling your breath, you control your nervous system, which controls your voice, which controls the perception of the other person. You are literally hacking their perception of reality to see you as a high-status authority figure rather than an emotional wreck. This is why silence is often louder than words. After you deliver your statement or make your exit, you must withstand the end oppose, pressure of the pause, and oppose. Most people are terrified of silence. They say their piece and then they keep talking to fill the void because the tension is uncomfortable. You must learn to love the tension. State your boundary, initiate the physical turn, and then be quiet. Let the silence hang in the air. Let it do the heavy lifting for you. In that silence, The other person is forced to confront the reality of your absence. They are forced to sit with their own behavior. If you keep talking, you distract them from their own guilt or realization. Silence is the mirror you hold up to them. Now, let's contextualize this with a scenario because theory without application is just noise. Imagine a scenario where you are being disrespected in a professional setting or a dating scenario where someone cancels on you last minute for the third time with a lame excuse. The rage quit version of you sends a text saying, "And oppose. I can and oppose. T believe you did this again. You have no respect for my time. I am so done with you. Don and oppose. T bother calling me. And oppose, what happens?" They read that and they think, "And oppose, whoa psycho. Dodged a bullet?" And oppose, or they think, "And oppose. Ah, they are really hurt. I can fix this later with a few compliments." And oppose, you have handed them the map to your forgiveness. You have shown them exactly where your buttons are. Now, let's run the silent quit/warm freeze version. They text, "And oppose. So sorry, can and oppose. T make it, crazy day." And oppose, you wait 3 hours. You do not reply instantly. Availability is the enemy of value. Then you reply, "And oppose, no worries." And oppose, that's it. No exclamation points, no emojis, just "and oppose, no worries." And oppose, then you go dark. You do not watch their stories. You do not post sad quotes on your social media. You do not subtweet. You proceed to live your life with high visibility but zero direct engagement. When they eventually reach out again, and they will because the "and oppose, no worries and oppose," is ambiguous and terrifying, they might say, "And oppose, hey, are we good?" And oppose, your response, "And oppose, yeah, I and oppose. V just been super focused on some other things. Hope you and oppose. Re good." And oppose, you have demoted them. You haven and oppose. T fired them. You and oppose. V demoted them to the mailroom. And that feeling of demotion is infinitely more painful than being fired. Being fired is a story they can tell their friends. Being demoted is embarrassing. It implies you found something better. It implies they simply didn't and oppose. T make the cut. This is the nuance of the execution. It's about implied comparative value. By not reacting, you are implying that your baseline standard is so high that their behavior doesn't and oppose. T even register as an insult. It just registers as a disqualification. You are the prize. The prize does not scream at the contestant for losing. The prize just sits there, shiny and unbothered, waiting for a winner who actually qualifies. This strategy requires you to overcome your own ego. The ego wants to be heard. The ego wants to prove them wrong. The ego wants the last word. But the last word is a trap. The person who needs the last word is the person who feels unheard. The person who walks away in silence is the person who needs nothing. And needing nothing is the ultimate attractive trait. It is magnetic. It pulls people into your orbit because it defies the laws of social gravity. Everyone is begging for validation. Everyone is fighting to be seen. When you voluntarily step out of that arena, you become the spectator, and the spectator holds the power. You are watching the show, not performing in it. This mental shift changes your vibe from an oppose, pick me and oppose, to and oppose, I choose, and oppose. And when you choose to walk away, you must do it with the mindset that you are walking towards something better. This ISN and oppose. T just a retreat, it and oppose. SA strategic advance in a different direction. If you view walking away as a loss, your body language will show defeat. If you view walking away as an upgrade, your body language will show liberation. That stride, the walk of someone who has just dropped dead weight, is unmistakable. It has a bounce. It has a rhythm. Catches the eye. You are literally lighter, and people want to be around that lightness. They want to know what you know. They want to know what you found that is better than what you left. That is the hook. That is the story. You become the protagonist of a new narrative that they are no longer writing. Think about the concept of an oppose, emotional leakage. And oppose, when you are trying to execute a walk away but you are secretly seething, it leaks out. It leaks out in the tightness of your jaw, the speed of your blink rate, the tone of your voice. The execution of the silent quit requires genuine internal processing. You have to actually reach a point of indifference, not just fake it. And the way to do that is to zoom out. Look at the situation from 30,000 feet. Is this text message worth your peace? Is this person worth your cortisol? When you realize the answer is no, the warm freeze becomes natural. It becomes your default state of self-preservation. You stop seeing it as a tactic to get them back and start seeing it as a protocol to get yourself back. That is the irony of the execution. The moment you stop doing it to manipulate them and start doing it to protect yourself is the moment it becomes most effective at manipulating them. It works best when you don an opos. Take care if it works. That is the paradox of power. You have to be willing to lose the connection to save the respect. If you prioritize the connection over the respect, you will lose both. If you prioritize the respect over the connection, you often keep both, but on your terms. That is the end game. The execution of the silent walk away is not about ending things. It is about resetting the terms of engagement. It is a negotiation tactic where your leverage is your absence. You are putting your presence on the open market and seeing what the bid is. If the current buyer ISN and oppos, T meeting the reserve price, you pull the lot. Simple as that. No drama, just business. The business of your life. And business is good when you cut losses early. Let's refine the and oppos. Vibe shift and oppos. One last time, because this is the invisible glue that holds the strategy together. Your vibe is your electromagnetic signature. It is what people feel before you speak. When you are in an oppos, chase mode and oppos, or in oppos, reaction mode and oppos, your vibe is spiky, frantic, and projecting outward. You are reaching. When you switch to an oppos, walk away mode, and oppos, your vibe must retract. Imagine pulling your energy field in, wrapping it around your body like a cloak. You become dense. You become solid. You are no longer projecting. You are containing. This containment is felt by everyone in the room. It is the energy of the person who knows a secret, creates a gravitational pull. When you master the warm freeze, the quarter turn, and the downward inflection, you are essentially constructing a fortress of solitude that looks like a penthouse. It's inviting from the outside, but impossible to get into without a key. And the only way they get a key is by matching your energy, by respecting your boundaries, and by stepping up. You have raised the price of admission. The execution is not a single moment. It is a sustained frequency. You have to hold the note. You cannot play the part of the stoic for 20 minutes and then crack and send a paragraph of feelings. That undoes everything. Consistency is the seal of authenticity. If you can hold the warm freeze for days, weeks, or however long is necessary, you rewrite the history of the relationship. You change from the person they could control to the person they couldn't, and oppos. Keep. And that is a label that sticks. That is the ghost that haunts them. That is the power of the execution. It is clean, it is surgical, and it leaves no scar on you, only a mark on them. You walk away whole. They are left wondering where the pieces went. That is the art of the exit. We are shifting gears right now from theory into the absolute trenches of execution, because understanding the psychology of walking away is meaningless if your thumbs betray you at 2 in the morning when you are scrolling through Instagram stories and feeling that hollow ache in your chest. This is where we implement what I call the GHOST protocol, a 7-day gamified system designed to not only reset your dopamine receptors, but to fundamentally rewire the power dynamic between you and the person who has been treating you like an option rather than a priority. This is not about being petty, and it is not about manipulation in the toxic sense, but rather it is about reclaiming the narrative of your own life and becoming the protagonist who has a mission that is far more important than waiting for a text message that might never come. We are going to break this down day by day, hour by hour, so you know exactly what the move is, why it works, and how to handle the inevitable emotional withdrawal that hits you like a freight train when you decide to go cold turkey on your addiction to their validation. Let us begin with the first 72 hours, which constitute the detox phase, and I need you to understand that this is going to be the hardest part of the entire process, because your brain is biologically hardwired to seek closure and connection. When you initiate zero contact, you are essentially fighting millions of years of evolution that screams at you that isolation equals death. But in the modern dating market, isolation equals mystery and mystery equals value. Day 1 is going to feel strange because you are used to the loop of checking your phone, seeing nothing, feeling anxious, sending a meme or a low-effort feeler text, and then waiting for the dopamine hit of a reply. On day 1 of the ghost protocol, you are consciously breaking that loop. You are going to wake up, and the first thing you are going to do is absolutely nothing regarding them. You are not going to view their stories, you are not going to like their posts, and most importantly, you are not going to initiate a single conversation. If they do not reach out to you, silence is the answer, and silence is the loudest sound in the universe when someone is expecting noise. You need to understand that your absence is a commodity. When you are constantly present, constantly available, and constantly trying to fill the dead air, you are signaling to their subconscious that your time has no value and that you have no other options. By removing your attention completely, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. As you move into day 2, the panic is going to set in, but it is not your panic. It is the panic of the ego trying to convince you that if you do not remind them you exist, they will forget you. This is the biggest lie in the book because object permanence is a real thing and nobody forgets a person in 48 hours, but what they do feel is a disruption in the pattern. If you have been the one always initiating, always carrying the conversation, and always double texting, your sudden silence is going to feel like a glitch in the matrix to them. They are going to check their phone and see that you haven in Oppos. T been online or that you haven in Oppos. T watched that story they posted specifically to get your attention. This is where the power shifts. On day 2, you are going to feel the urge to cave, to just send a quick and quote, hey and quote, or a funny link, but you must resist this with every fiber of your being because every time you break the silence, you reset the clock and you confirm to them that you are still on the hook. You have to treat this like a video game where your health bar is your self-respect and every unprovoked text message you send drains that health bar to 0. The goal of the detox phase is to prove to yourself that you can exist without their validation. And the moment you realize you can survive without their attention is the moment you become dangerous in the best possible way. By the time you hit day 3, the dynamic is solidifying. If they haven in Oppos, T reached out by now, you have your answer about where you stand in their life, and while that might hurt, clarity is better than confusion. However, if they are used to you chasing, day 3 is usually when the curiosity starts to itch at the back of their brain. They start wondering if you met someone else, if you are angry, or if you simply got a life. This is the seed of attraction. Attraction does not grow in safety. It grows in uncertainty. You are manufacturing a controlled environment of uncertainty where they are forced to confront the reality of your absence. During these first 3 days, you are essentially fasting from the drug of their attention, and while your brain is screaming for a fix, you are teaching it to source dopamine from other areas. This is why we call it the detox. You are flushing out the cortisol and the anxiety that comes from being on standby. You are taking your phone off loud mode. You are disabling notifications. You are reclaiming the mental bandwidth that was previously leased out to them for free. You need to internalize the fact that if they wanted to talk to you, they would. If they wanted to see you, they would make it happen. The silence you are enduring is not a punishment you are inflicting on yourself. It is a boundary you are drawing around your dignity. Once you have survived the initial 3-day detox without cracking, without stalking their location, and without posting sad song lyrics on your story, you graduate to the reinvestment phase, which covers days 4 and 5. This is where we pivot from passive resistance to active reconstruction. It is not enough to just sit at home and not text them. You have to replace that void with high-value activity or you will eventually relapse. We are instituting mandatory and quote, date yourself and quote, blocks. This is not about taking a bubble bath or ordering a pizza. This is about doing things that genuinely raise your market value and your internal state. You are going to go to the gym and hit a personal record. You are going to go to a museum, a bookstore, or a new part of the city that you have never explored. You are going to work on that side hustle or that project you have been neglecting because you were too busy waiting for a text back. The psychology here is twofold. First, you are proving to yourself that your life is rich and interesting without a co-pilot. Second, you are generating content. This brings us to the strategic use of social media during the reinvestment phase. On days 4 and 5, you are going to break your digital silence, but you are going to do it with surgical precision. You are going to post, but the rule is high value and zero context. Most people use social media as a diary, explaining exactly where they are, who they are with, and how they are feeling. You are going to do the opposite. You are going to post a photo of an incredible meal, a view from a rooftop bar, or a stack of books with a coffee, and you are going to leave the caption blank or use a single cryptic emoji. You are not going to tag anyone. You are not going to tag the location. You are creating a curiosity gap. When they see this story, and they will see this story, they are going to analyze it like a forensic scientist. Who is taking the picture? Why are you at that expensive restaurant? Why aren't in Appos? T, you sad that they haven't in Appos? T texted you. Why does it look like you are having the time of your life? The lack of context forces their brain to fill in the blanks, and the human brain always assumes the worst-case scenario for the ego, which is that you are moving on and you are doing better without them. This manufactured mystery is the most potent aphrodisiac in the world. You are signaling that you have a life that is vibrant and full, and that you are not sitting around pining for them. This shifts you from being an NPC in their life, a non-player character who is just there to validate them, to being the main character of your own movie. During this reinvestment phase, you must also work on your internal monologue. You have to stop telling yourself the story of rejection and start telling yourself the story of selection. You are not being ignored. You are selecting to focus your energy elsewhere. This reframe is crucial because energy is palpable. Even through a screen, people can sense when you are thirsty and they can sense when you are satiated. By filling your days with activities that actually light you up, you enter a state of abundance. You stop radiating that needy, grasping energy that repels high-value people. When you are genuinely busy falling in love with your own life, you become magnetic. It is the law of reversed effort. The less you try to pull them in, the more they feel the gravitational pull of your independence. You are becoming a challenge again. You are becoming a prize to be won rather than a participation trophy they already have on their shelf. Now we move into the endgame of the protocol, days 6 and 7, which is the re-entry phase. By this point, the statistical probability of them reaching out skyrockets. The combination of your initial silence followed by the visual evidence of your high-value life usually triggers a and quote, ping and quote, text. This is a low-effort attempt to see if you are still available. It will usually be something vague like in quote, hey, and quote, thinking of you, and quote, or a reaction to your story. This is the trap. Most people get this text and immediately flood with relief. They think, and quote, oh thank God, they don in Appos. T hate me, and quote, and they reply instantly, vomiting all their suppressed emotions and availability back onto the person. If you do this, you destroy everything you built in the last 5 days. You instantly devalue yourself back to zero. You must understand that when they reach out, they are not necessarily declaring their undying love. They are checking the temperature. They are checking to see if the door is still unlocked. Your job in the re-entry phase is to show them that the door is not only locked, but there is a velvet rope and a bouncer outside. You need to script your response before the text even comes in so you are not reacting emotionally in the moment. When the inevitable text comes in on day 6 or 7, you are going to wait. You are not going to reply in 5 minutes. You are not going to reply in an hour. You are going to match their response time and then double it or wait until the next morning if it comes in late at night. You are busy. You are high value. You have a life. When you finally do reply, you are going to use the end quote, busy but happy end quote, frame. The script is simple but devastatingly effective. You say something like, end quote, hey, good to hear from you. I've been absolutely slammed with some exciting projects this week. What's the latest with you? End quote. Let's break down the psychology of this specific syntax. First, you are polite and breezy. There is no anger, no bitterness, no end quote. Why didn't an Appos? You text me, end quote. Anger shows you care. Indifference shows you are above it. Second, you use the word end quote. Slammed, end quote. This implies high demand. It implies that your time is a scarce resource. Third, and most importantly, you mention end quote. Exciting projects, end quote. You don and Appos. T say end quote. I and Appos. V been busy with work end quote, which sounds boring and drudgery. You say end quote. Exciting projects end quote, which implies passion, forward momentum, and a secret life that they are not part of. You are framing your absence not as end quote, I was ignoring you end quote, but as end quote, I was too busy leveling up to notice you were gone, end quote. This response flips the script entirely. They expected you to be sulking or waiting by the phone. Instead, you are breezy, positive, and focused on things that have nothing to do with them. It subtly communicates that they are not the center of your universe. It forces them to qualify themselves to you. They now have to work to get back into your schedule. They have to ask what the projects are. They have to ask when you are free. You have effectively gamified the interaction where you are the dungeon master and they are rolling the dice to see if they can get a slot in your calendar. This is the essence of being instantly attractive. Attraction is not about looks. It is about status and value. By demonstrating that your attention is scarce and that your life is exciting, you raise your perceived status. You become the person who walked away to do something better, and that makes them terrified of losing you. But what happens if day 7 comes and goes and they still haven and oppose? T reached out. This is the fear that stops everyone from starting the protocol. You have to realize that if you go 7 days without a word and they don and oppose, T-care, you never had them to begin with. You were dancing with a ghost. The ghost protocol will either bring them running back with a newfound respect for your time, or it will expose the dead end that you have been wasting your energy on. Either result is a victory. If they come back, you re-enter the dynamic on your terms, with your dignity intact and your value established. If they don and oppose, T, you have successfully detoxed yourself from a bad investment and you have spent a week building a better life, reconnecting with yourself and realizing that you are the prize. You have gamified the process of letting go. You have turned the painful act of waiting into an active strategy of self-improvement. You have to commit to the bit. You cannot do this halfway. You cannot do the ghost protocol for 2 days and then send a drunk text on Friday night. That just makes you look unstable. The power of this strategy lies in the consistency and the discipline. It signals a permanent shift in your character. You are no longer the person who settles for crumbs. You are the person who bakes the whole cake and eats it by themselves if they have to. This 7-day stretch is your training ground. It is the crucible where you burn off the neediness and forge a new identity. By the time you reach the end of the week, regardless of whether they text or not, you will feel different. You will feel lighter. You will realize that the phone is a tool for you to use, not a leash that controls you. Let and oppose. Let's go deeper into the re-entry psychology, because this is where most people fumble the bag. If they text you and ask to see you last minute, the answer is no. It has to be no. If you accept a last-minute date after a week of silence, you are teaching them that your time has no value and that you were free all along. You have to say, I and oppose. D love to see you, but I and oppose. M booked up this week. Let and oppose. S look at next Tuesday. This is the ultimate power move. You are rejecting the specific time, not the person, which keeps the attraction alive, but you are setting a boundary that you require advance notice. High-value people have schedules. High-value people are not sitting around on a Friday night waiting for you up? Text. By pushing the date to next week, you are enforcing the frame that you are a priority that needs to be scheduled, not an option for when they are bored. This requires nerves of steel because you will be afraid that if you say no, they will disappear. But remember, someone who disappears because you have a life is not someone who wanted to be part of your life. They wanted to consume your time. Throughout this entire 7-day protocol, you are essentially rewriting the neural pathways in your brain that associate your self-worth with their validation. Every time you feel the urge to check their social media and you stop yourself, you are doing a rep for your mental toughness. Every time you choose to read a book or go for a run instead of staring at a blank screen, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. This is why we call it a protocol. It is a strict set of rules designed to save you from your own emotional volatility. It is a safety net for your dignity. And when you execute this correctly, the results are often shocking. People sense the shift. They sense when you have pulled your energy back. It is like a disturbance in the force. They feel the tether snap, and that sudden lack of tension is what makes them turn around and look for you. They want to know why you aren't and oppose chasing anymore. They want to know what you found that is more interesting than them. The beauty of the Ghost Protocol is that it is a win-win scenario. There is no losing here. You are not playing games to manipulate them. You are playing a game to elevate yourself. You are using the principles of human psychology, scarcity, social proof, and intermittent reinforcement to protect your energy. You are taking the focus off of, and quote, how do I get them to like me, and quote, and placing it squarely on, and quote, how do I make my life so good that I don an oppose? Take care if they like me, and quote, that level of confidence is unshakable. It is intoxicating. It is the definition of magnetic. When you truly walk away, when you truly commit to the silence and the self-investment, you create a vacuum of desire that pulls them in, but more importantly, you build a fortress of self-respect that no one can tear down. You stop being a passenger in your own love life and you take the wheel. The action plan is simple, but it is not easy. It requires you to sit with discomfort. It requires you to face the void. But on the other side of that 7-day tunnel is a version of you that is stronger, more attractive, and infinitely more powerful. Listen to me closely, because we are arriving at the single most critical pivot point in your entire psychological architecture. And if you miss this shift, nothing else I have told you will matter, because techniques are just shiny toys until you change the engine running them. We are talking about the ultimate payoff of the walk-away method, but we need to shatter a massive misconception right now before we go any further. Most people think walking away is a negotiation tactic designed to manipulate someone else into giving you what you want, like a child holding their breath until they turn blue, or a customer pretending to leave the car dealership just to get the salesman to chase them into the parking lot with a lower price. While that might work in sales, it is absolute poison in human dynamics, because people are intuitive creatures who can smell the stench of a bluff from a mile away. If you are walking away just to see if they turn around to watch you go, you haven and oppose. T actually walked away, you are just waiting, and waiting is the most passive and unattractive state of existence a human being can occupy. We are flipping the script from being the chaser to becoming the chooser, and this is not about playing hard to get. It is about being hard to forget, because your value is intrinsic rather than dependent on their validation. When you are stuck in the chaser energy, you are operating from a place of scarcity where you believe that this person or this opportunity is the last drop of water in the desert, and if you lose it, you will die of thirst. This biological panic triggers your amygdala and floods your system with cortisol, which makes you act erratic, needy, and suffocating. You send the double text. You watch their story 5 seconds after they post it. You analyze every punctuation mark in their messages. You are vibrating at the frequency of desperation, and let me tell you that desperation is the world's most potent anti-aphrodisiac. It repels people on a primal level, because historically and evolutionarily speaking, if someone was desperate, it meant they were resource poor, socially ostracized, or unsafe, and our lizard brains are wired to run in the opposite direction of that energy. Now imagine the complete inverse of that reality. Imagine the identity shift that happens when you genuinely internalize the abundance mindset. This is the moment you realize that the world is overflowing with opportunities, connections, and potential partners who would feel lucky to have access to your time and energy. When you truly walk away, you are not looking back over your shoulder. You are looking forward at the horizon of your own life. This is where the magic happens, because the moment you stop trying to convince someone of your worth is the moment you actually start believing it yourself. You are no longer selling yourself. You are no longer auditioning for the role of being their partner or their friend. You are the casting director. You are sitting behind the desk. You are the one deciding if they fit into the movie of your life, not the other way around. This shift from auditioner to casting director changes your micro-behaviors, your tonality, your eye contact, and even your posture. Let's dig deeper into the psychology of why this makes you instantly attractive, because it is not just magic, it is mechanics. Human beings are obsessed with what they cannot control and what they cannot fully predict. When you are chasing, you are predictable. You are a known quantity. You are safe, boring, and conquered. There is no mystery. There is no curiosity gap. And there is no dopamine rush in acquiring something that has already thrown itself at your feet. But when you walk away, you create a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and human psychology abhors a loss of power. When you withdraw your attention, which is the most valuable currency you possess in the digital age, you create a massive disruption in their validation loop. Suddenly, the source of free attention is gone. They check their phone and there is nothing. They check your status and you are living your life. This forces them to confront the reality of your absence, and absence is the only thing that can breed true appreciation. You cannot miss something that never leaves. By walking away, You are essentially telling the universe and the person in front of you that your self-respect is more important than their approval. That is a heavy statement. That is a statement that shakes people to their core because we live in a society of people pleasers and social climbers who would trade their dignity for a slice of attention in a heartbeat. When you demonstrate that you are willing to burn the bridge rather than cross it on your knees, you become a dangerous commodity, and I mean dangerous in the most attractive way possible. You become high status. High-status individuals do not tolerate ambiguity. They do not tolerate disrespect. They do not wait around in the gray area hoping someone makes up their mind about them. They make up their own mind and they move. This decisiveness triggers a deep psychological reassessment in the other person and Oppo's brain. They start asking themselves, wait a minute, if he or she is willing to walk away from me, maybe they know something I don't and Oppo's. Maybe their value is higher than I thought. Maybe I am the one losing out here. This is the rebalancing of the equation. You are taking the power pedestal out from under them and placing it firmly under your own feet. But remember, and I cannot stress this enough, this must be authentic. You cannot fake this vibrational shift. You have to reach a point of emotional closure where you say to yourself, I am good with you and I am good without you. That is the definition of emotional freedom. It is outcome independence. It means your happiness, your stability, and your self-image are entirely decoupled from their actions. If they text, cool. If they don an Oppo's, cool. You are going to the gym regardless. You are building your business regardless. You are traveling regardless. You are laughing with your friends regardless. You are the main character of your story, not a supporting actor in There's Waiting for a Cue. This is where we confront the sunk cost fallacy, which is the psychological trap that keeps you staying when you should be walking. You think about the time you invested, the emotions you poured in, the future you fantasized about, and your brain screams that you cannot walk away because you will lose that investment. But the abundance mindset tells you that the only thing you are losing is a dead anchor that is keeping you from sailing to better waters. Walking away is an act of cutting your losses to maximize your future gains. It is a ruthless prioritization of your own mental health and future potential. When you do this, you stop radiating the energy of lack and you start radiating the energy of a prize. A prize does not beg to be won. A prize sits there, shining, valuable, and self-contained, waiting for someone with the merit and the capacity to claim it. Let and Oppo's talk about the specific emotional closure that happens within you. When you finally decide to walk away, the anxiety breaks. That tightness in your chest that you have been carrying for weeks or months. Checking your phone every 3 minutes, wondering what you did wrong, replaying conversations in your head, all of that dissolves. It is replaced by a profound silence and a surge of power. It is the realization that the cage door was open the whole time and you were the one keeping yourself inside. You step out into the sunlight of your own life and you realize that you are whole. You are not a half looking for another half to complete you. You are a complete universe looking for another complete universe to collide with. That energy is magnetic. It pulls people in like gravity. When you operate from this chooser frame, you flip the dynamic of judgment. Instead of worrying if you are good enough for them, you start evaluating if they are good enough for you. Do they meet your standards? Do they respect your time? Do they bring peace or chaos? Do they elevate you or drain you? This change in perspective changes your aura. You walk differently. You speak with more pauses because you are not rushing to explain yourself. You hold eye contact longer because you are not afraid of what they see. You become comfortable with silence because you are not desperate to fill it with people-pleasing chatter. This is the edutainment of your own soul, learning to be entertained by your own existence so you don an Oppo's. Need to outsource your happiness to a fluctuating external source. The most powerful negotiation position in the world, whether in business, in hostage situations, or in romantic entanglements, is the ability to walk away and mean it. If you cannot walk away, you have no leverage. You are a hostage to your own desire. But the second you demonstrate that you can leave the table, the leverage shifts 100% to your side. The other party suddenly realizes that the deal is not guaranteed. They have to work for it. They have to earn it. And human beings value what they earn. We treat things we worked for with care and respect. We treat things that were handed to us for free with indifference. By walking away, you are giving them the gift of an opportunity to earn you, or you are giving yourself the gift of freedom. Either way, you win. That is the beauty of this strategy. It is a win-win for you no matter what the outcome is. If they chase you, great, you can decide if you still want them. If they let you go, great, you just dodged a bullet and cleared space for something better. We need to address the fear that stops you. The fear is that if you walk away, it is over forever. You think that by staying close, by hovering, by liking their posts, you are keeping the door open. But in reality, you are just standing in the doorway blocking the light. You have to close the door to see if they will knock. And if they don and oppose, knock, then you have your answer, and an answer, even a painful one, is infinitely better than the torture of confusion. Clarity is power. Walking away forces clarity. It forces the situation to resolve itself one way or another. It strips away the games, the manipulation, and the mixed signals. It brings truth to the surface. Think about the content you consume, the movies you watch. Who is the hero? Is it the person begging and pleading? No, it is the person who rides off into the sunset, the person who chooses their mission over their misery. You are the director of your own content strategy called life. You need to start cutting the scenes that don and oppose. Serve the plot. You need to edit out the characters that bring down the retention rate of your happiness. You are producing a viral life, a life that is so engaging and high value that people want to subscribe to it. You cannot do that if you are stuck in a loop of low-value chasing behavior. The identity shift requires you to kill the old version of yourself. You have to mourn the simp, you have to bury the people pleaser, you have to hold a funeral for the version of you that thought you needed to earn love by suffering. That version of you is dead. The new version of you is the selector. The new version of you understands that your time is a non-renewable resource. Every second you spend chasing someone who doesn't and oppose, your value is a second you are stealing from someone who would. It is a second you are stealing from your purpose, your passions, and your peace. This is an economic calculation of the soul. The ROI on chasing is negative. The ROI on walking away is infinite because it returns you to yourself. And let and oppose, be real about the modern dating market. It is saturated with low-effort behavior because people accept low-effort behavior. When you walk away from low effort, you set a new market standard. You signal that the price of admission to your life has gone up. You are the luxury brand, not the discount bin. You don and oppose. Ferrari running commercials begging people to buy their cars. They don and oppose. Need to. They know what they are. You need to know what you are. You need to embody that luxury mindset where you know the quality of what you bring to the table is so high that if someone walks past it, it is a reflection of their taste, not your worth. This leads us to the final emotional anchor, the concept that will lock this into your brain forever. You need to understand that power is not about controlling others. Power is about controlling yourself. When you try to control how someone feels about you, you are weak. When you control how you respond to how they feel about you, you are invincible. The moment you are willing to walk away is the moment you possess all the power. Not some of the power, not half of the power, but all of it. You become the master of your fate. You are no longer a leaf blowing in the wind of their mood swings. You are the mountain. The wind blows, the storm rages, but the mountain does not move. The mountain stays grounded. Be the mountain. You have to feel this in your gut. This ISN and oppose, just intellectual. It and oppose, visceral. It and oppose, the feeling of your feet hitting the pavement as you turn around. It and oppose, the feeling of putting your phone in your pocket and not looking at it for 4 hours. It and oppose, the feeling of sleeping soundly at night because you know you didn't and oppose. Betray yourself to keep someone else comfortable. This is the ultimate form of self-love. We talk about self-care like it's bubble baths and cheat meals, but real self-care is making the hard decisions to remove toxicity from your life even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. That pain you feel when you walk away is just weakness leaving the body. It is the growing pain of your self-esteem expanding to fill the space you finally made for it. So I want you to make a contract with yourself right now. This ISN and oppose, T, just a video you watched on the internet while procrastinating. This is a turning point. This is the moment you draw a line in the sand and say no more. No more chasing. No more begging. No more settling for breadcrumbs when you are the whole bakery. You are going to adopt the abundance mindset not as a trick, but as a truth. You are going to realize that there are 8 billion people on this planet, and it is mathematically impossible that this one person who treats you like an option is your only option. You are going to step into your power as the chooser, to solidify this pact, to lock in this new standard of existence, and to prove to yourself and the algorithm that you are ready to level up your psychology. I want you to go down to the comments right now. Do not skip this. This is a psychological anchor. I want you to type the words and quote, I walk away and quote, type it in all caps, scream it into the digital void, and quote, I walk away and quote, from disrespect, and quote, I walk away and quote, from uncertainty, and quote, I walk away and quote, from anything that does not serve my highest self. By typing this, you are casting a vote for the new identity you are building. You are telling your subconscious mind that you are done with the old ways. And once you have done that, make sure you smash that subscribe button, because we are just scratching the surface of the dark psychology and social dynamics you need to master to navigate this world. And you do not want to be left behind while everyone else is waking up.